Content anxiety refers to whether or not a leader knows the material to be covered in the group, while process anxiety refers to the ability to control the group when certain behaviors occur. Both of these anxieties can be addressed through preparation, but group leaders or experts in content may still experience process anxiety after running a group multiple times. Preparation and co-leadership are 2 tips for beating anxiety, and you can refer to the Hill and Harris chapter for even more helpful suggestions. Keep in mind that anxiety can be helpful for leaders, as it activates us and can serve to increase attention and focus. Avoidance can also result from anxiety, which ultimately serves to maintain anxiety rather than actually, and the style in which they execute these roles have an impact on group dynamics. Most group leaders show flexibility in their style, working to match behavior with the purpose of the group and membership. Leadership styles include the conventional authoritarian approach, while the democratic approach is less directive and more group-centered. Democratic leaders tend to facilitate rather than direct group members, and rely on trusting the group members to take care of themselves. A laissez-faire approach means providing no structure or direction to the group, and instead the group operates on its own, which may result in a lack of clear purpose or goals. Leaderless groups rotate the leadership, which may or may not include some kind of leadership training. This style can be constructive, it can also be destructive to groups, and not an appropriate model when members are experiencing moderate to severe disturbances. Regardless of style, leaders must promote sharing among members within the group, and are wise to consider the type of group and its purpose. A task or psychoeducational group needs leaders who can direct and keep the group focused on the topic or job at hand, while counseling may require more support and caring, as well as structure and sometimes confrontation. No matter what style, leaders must tend to the core mechanisms of group leadership, which include emotional stimulation, caring, meaning attribution, and executive function. So one of the focuses this week is to talk about leadership, and we're going to do that by thinking about 2 components, traits and skills. Traits are the who I am as a leader, those things that we bring as part of our own individual approach. And the skills are the what I do. And those are things that may come naturally to us, but typically we've learned them, we model them. The skills approach more has to do with the behaviors and the actions. Let's look at them each individually. Here you see some traits that group leaders display. Group leaders are courageous. They're willing to model. Group leaders are very present and genuine. Group leaders are caring and believe in the group process. Group leaders remain open and are non-defensive. They're culturally aware and empathic. Group leaders are powerful and possess stamina. Group leaders are committed to self-care and increasing self-awareness. Group leaders possess a sense of humor, are inventive, and are dedicated. The trait approach to leadership is not supported by the literature or the research, but this trait approach can help the leader and the group work more effectively together as they strive to achieve goals. Now looking at skills, we see that group leaders should be able to demonstrate active listening and reflecting as part of their leadership. Group leaders need to be able to clarify and summarize what's going on within the group, as well as facilitate and empathize. Group leaders display the ability to interpret and question, as well as linking member comments to unite members of the group. Group leaders need to be able to both confront and support, which may happen together. Group leaders need to be able to do blocking, which we talk about, but basically as group members begin to demonstrate behaviors that did not belong in that group, whether it be gossiping or asking a lot of why questions, one skill that leaders display is being able to block that. Other skills include assessing, modeling, and suggesting, as well as initiating and evaluating and terminating. Your book also provides the Association for Specialists in Work, or ASGW, professional standards for training group workers, which contains 16 skills, and you can find that on page 63 of your text. The leadership skills are used to promote safety and growth in the group context, and may be more or less appropriate depending on the leadership style that has been selected. Someone who's decided on a laissez-faire approach is unlikely to use confronting in the same way that an authoritarian approach may, but skills like active listening and supporting are necessary regardless of leadership style. In your discussion board this week, you'll be asked to select 3 traits and 3 skills to explore in depth and reflect on some questions that I've given you. And you may use these slides or anything in the book to bring into the discussion board. Let's talk a little bit about group leadership roles. Group leaders have various roles throughout the life of the group, and they include traffic director, when leaders help members become aware of behaviors that open communication channels, and those that inhibit communication as well. The role as traffic director is both proactive and reactive in the prevention of certain behaviors, and comes across in a non-judgmental way. A similar role is that of modeler of appropriate behavior. And so leaders must be responsible for being very intentional about the actions that they exhibit and the way they demonstrate things like communication within the group. Specific behaviors that modeling may help with include self-disclosure, and role plays can offer an opportunity for modeling as well. Group leaders may pay careful attention to voice tone and body language as part of their role as a modeler of appropriate behavior. Another role that group leadership demands is that of the interactional catalyst, which means that leaders promote interaction between group members without calling attention to themselves. This can be done through questioning, whether to or linking. So as group members begin to talk about similar things, group leaders can begin to link those together, encourage members to speak directly to one another rather than just sort of generally speaking to the group or being a bit vague. But the interactional catalyst role requires that group leaders encourage that interaction among the members. The final group leadership role here is of communication facilitator, where group leaders reflect the content and the feeling of members and teach them, again, almost modeling here, for other members to be able to use this as well, to be able to reflect the content and the feeling. Group leaders may note when someone is conveying that they're feeling depressed, or offering some of what they're seeing in tone or body language, that they're not smiling or that they sort of lack energy in their communication. This helps members focus on the expression of the words and then also the emotion behind the words. And again, hopefully group members are picking up on this and then they're able to develop this as well. Each of these roles can be found in your book on page 68 and 69. The next piece to talk about here is leaders and their role in group conflict. There are 5 specific techniques outlined in your text for managing conflict in the group, as proposed by Simpson and elaborated on by Kromansky. When group conflict occurs, leaders may select from various options for managing that conflict, which include withdrawal from that conflict, where leaders step back, almost sort of push a pause button, and take some time to gather more information before diving in or addressing that conflict. It allows leaders to consult and use resolution strategies later. And one disadvantage of this is that conflict may escalate in the time when the leader has withdrawn and is gathering more information. So there is the potential that by not acting immediately, the conflict could escalate. Another option is suppressing the conflict. which basically involves playing it down and is effective when the conflict that's occurring is relatively minor. Keeps emotions under control. And one disadvantage of this is that it doesn't necessarily resolve the conflict, and it allows feelings to potentially continue without being addressed, and they may come back up later if they are strong enough. Additionally, leaders who suppress conflict, decide to use suppression here, may be perceived as weak or not wanting to address it or not able to address it by basically suppressing or minimizing it. Another option is integrating conflicting ideas to form new solutions. So basically, in this scenario, a group will try to get everybody to re-examine the situation. And then the idea here is to develop new alternatives. Think about different ways to be talking about the issue, to be addressing the issue. Mediation is one piece here where basically a third party comes in to take in all the information and then help think of a new decision. Resolution. One disadvantage of the integrative approach is that it can take a lot of time, and it requires that the conflicting members, are able to set aside their differences. Implies willingness, which may not always be present. Working out a compromise is another approach, another strategy here, and in this method. Basically, members are encouraged to each give up a little bit in developing a win-win situation where you can, instead of one party out fully as the winner and one party coming out fully as the loser, each decides to give up a little bit so that everybody can feel good about the decision that is made or the eventual action that takes place. One disadvantage here is that that in sort of deciding what to give up and what to keep and deciding on what that most important thing is, the potential for one side or the other to inflate their wants and to sort of basically to ask for too much and not want to give up anything. There's a potential for that when you're asking somebody to compromise. Finally, and perhaps the most difficult strategy is using power to resolve the conflict as the group leader. And basically what this requires is that group leaders use their position power, their personality, to basically encourage members or persuade members really to select a course of action. And this can be very difficult, and you need to pay very close attention to the leadership approach that you're using. Because, for instance, in a laissez-faire approach, or certainly in a leaderless approach, this would not be congruent with the way you're approaching your group work. Again, these strategies can be found on page 69 and page 70, and it's important to keep in mind that these 5 strategies are outlined. There are many other ways to deal with conflict, but that each of these may be effective, has advantages and disadvantages. And basically, it needs to be addressed contextually based on what's going on within that specific group, in that specific group conflict. And leaders must select what approach is going to have the highest potential for success in that moment. Co-leadership is an opportunity for 2 leaders to collaborate in a mutually determined manner, which means that they have taken some time to decide how this co-leadership experience and relationship will work in order to facilitate group work. Co-leaders may be especially helpful with groups of 12 or more due to the size, but can also be very effective with smaller groups and when working with children. Co-leaders are typically most effective when they share their thoughts about the group and they're on the same page, but they bring different skill sets and behaviors to the group, so they complement one another. Co-leaders work together in the planning and reflection, as well as evaluating the group. So really each of the steps co-leaders should work together in. Supervisors can train both leaders, or supervisors can participate as a co-leader with a supervisee. Like with most things, there are advantages and disadvantages, and in our text, Gladding points out a handful of advantages of co-leadership, and I encourage you to refer back to these on page 72. They include dealing with difficult situations, modeling, feedback, shared specialized knowledge, and some pragmatic considerations. There are also potential limitations to group leadership, which include lack of coordinated efforts, too leader-focused, competition and collusion. And again, these can be found in more detail on your text on page 73. As we summarize at the end of this lecture here, we keep in mind that group leaders may expect some anxiety, either content anxiety, which is concerned with material covered in the group, or process anxiety, which refers to the ability to control the group when certain behaviors occur. Leadership styles may vary, but leaders should be aware of how leadership style matches the type and the purpose of the group they are leading. Traits and skills also play a role in leadership, with traits describing the who I am as a leader and skills describing the what I do aspect of leadership. There are four distinct group leader roles, and then also 5 strategies for managing conflict that we've explored. And each of those are going to depend on where the group is and the group leader being able to meet group needs in that moment. Finally, co-leadership provides leaders with the opportunity to collaborate and train by sharing the leadership role. Co-leadership requires considerable preparation and is not without limitations, but the advantages are also significant when executed effectively. This concludes our week 3 lecture on group leadership. Thanks for listening.
So you see all the stuff you're in charge of to be a group leader and why it makes me anxious. Anybody else get anxious to be in charge? What's that?
A little bit.
Which is why you get so many years for train. So you get 4 years for social work school and train, then you get an internship, and then you get, even after that, your first few weeks of the job where they're training you. What's the longest any one of you have been trained at one of your jobs before? If you've worked somewhere, do they give you training for?
Probably like a week.
That's pretty typical.
Ours is 3 days.
Is it? But it's 3 solid.
But it's 3 solid 12.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, or 36 hours?
Yeah, it's like 3 12 in a row.
That would be exhausting.
It is.
Okay. So that's what you get to prepare yourself for as a group. The co-leadership stuff, I will say, Jennifer and I made this when we were in the doctoral program, and she's awesome. The co-leadership stuff was true. Is I had to co-lead a trauma group once before, and I had a co-leader who, like, I would always be 5 minutes early. She would always be about 15 minutes late. And the group was only for 45 minutes, maybe 53 at most. And so what that did was really cut into, it wasn't of her own making. She would be on the call with like management or somebody, but it took like 15, it took like a third of the group, right? I just run it myself. So it just looked as though we were not communicating well or not organized. So co-leadership can kind of be a pain. But some places they'll ask you to do it because that's often, especially when you're an intern, that's how you learn how to lead. You're like, all right, so what do I have to do to lead? And that's the disadvantages. It says lack of coordinated efforts, too leader focused, competition even, because I think we both were trying to go for promotion. And you would hope you work together, but believe it or not, sometimes there is competitive natures at work, and there might only be one next up position for the other person. The advantages were, though, that like we could hold each other accountable, give feedback, model. They could watch us leading together. And if you do work well with co-leaders, it's great. So it really just depends. Did it ever get hot outside, or is it just now starting to get hot?
It's just not really getting hot.
So I wonder, is it hotter? Like if you put your hand out there, is it hotter out there than it is
In here? Yeah.
You might want to shut the window. We might be losing our AC. Is it cooler out there still?
Not like right now, it's cool. Like,
Well, it might be the AC leaving out the window. But I don't know. Our AC could suck too, so that's the only reason I ask. So yeah, with co-leading, that's some of the stuff. Adriel works at a daycare and did training for a week. So yeah, it depends. Like at Lighthouse, we had to get signed by every leadership area, like done with that training, done with that training, done with that training. So learning how to lead a group can be a lot of work, and that's why we build up to it. And it is true that you're kind of like the traffic director. You're the one who starts things off. So it says internal catalyst. Conflict stuff does come up too. Sometimes it's just like scheduling a time. But I wonder if something caught on fire out there.
Probably so.
But yeah, how you handle those different conflicts is it can make or break a group, in all honesty. So yeah, you guys, what you need to make sure that you are always learning or practicing how to do. So active listening. Anybody know what active listening is? Okay, that's good. You want to tell the rest of us since none of us all know?
I was hoping I did. I didn't guess it.
You were hoping you didn't know?
I was hoping they did know. I
Oh.
didn't guess it. You were scared.
So you don't have to. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? Right, like listening to engage, yeah. They do say sometimes if we're listening to holler back, like we miss stuff. So if you're like actively engaging with them, like back and forth, clarifying, well, yeah, it says reflecting, clarifying, summarizing. That actually everything underneath that could be active listening. Reflecting, clarifying, summarizing, facilitating, empathizing is a big one, interpreting, questioning, linking. Sometimes if somebody questions you too much, it's actually annoying though. Have you ever had that one before? Why is that? I've been trying to figure that one out myself. Like, especially if it's my mom. Because you know she's digging for something. Like, why do you do that? Why are you going there? What are you doing after that? Or, stuff like that. So the questioning could be annoying, but it doesn't have to be. What's that? Okay. I didn't try to do that. Confronting, supporting, blocking. Blocking. Is that like on Facebook? You block somebody? Huh. I feel like a lot of this came out before it was big on. Blocking, assessing, like seeing what else you need to figure out. And then modeling. A lot of times it is like, how do you model appropriate behaviors? And suggesting, initiating, evaluating, and then terminating. So terminating is sometimes the toughest thing as social workers that we do. Like, have you guys ever heard that it's easy to take on more clients, but then when you gotta like let somebody go and let them fly, like we have a hard time letting them go. Like, but we're geared to, we should be empowering them to empower themselves. But sometimes it feels good to be needed, like, no, I can still help you, or I can, but the idea is to like empower people to empower others, to empower themselves, to empower others. And so the terminating part is weird. Like I can do better at taking on a new client, assessing, than I do like finishing and saying, cool, like, see ya when I see ya. I don't know why that's scary. Is that scary to anybody else? You just let them go.
Yeah.
I thought you just developed like a
Right. Right. Yeah. And then you got to terminate.
I think the biggest
Yeah.
fear is them failing after all that work you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Which that's part of learning, but absolutely. It's definitely definitely challenging. Quick question. Anybody know science classes you can take besides water resource management? MGMT. Oh yeah, physical science, right?
Yeah.
Physical science seems to be a fave. Is that true, or am I making that crap up? I don't know why people.
Because nobody wants to take water.
In physical science, it's just like a click through, right? People say you just do like send gauge, like click,
Water
click,
resources
click,
was
click.
small.
Was it?
Huh?
See, I've heard both sides. I wonder if it depends on who's teaching.
Yeah, I just.
Hopefully that'll do it. Okay. I know I'm working back through these opposite the way you heard them in, but then yeah, being courageous, willing to model, present, genuine, caring. So like opening up, which sometimes sucks in groups, but they say we should not self-disclose a lot. But there is one time when it's really good that you can self-disclose and talk about your own struggles or whatever it is. When do you think that is? Excuse me, my allergies still suck. And smog alerts. They say we should only self-disclose when it's beneficial to the client. When it's like a story.
So maybe we can try to relate to them so that they don't feel
They're
right.
brutal, but like you'll self-disclose when your experience is beneficial to the client's. What word am I looking for? Getting better. I don't even know why I can. Allergy, congestion makes your head go blank. Is it a smog alert today too? Have you heard that? Like whenever it's above 90, they say the air quality sucks. And when you breathe
Oh, yeah, I
in,
think it does suck.
what? Yeah, around here too. Because in Cincinnati it's really bad. In the inner city it gets horrible.
Yeah, because think about all that.
Cars.
Yeah, it has to be or whatever.
So I took every decongestant known to man. I drank reishi mushroom tea, chaga mushroom tea, and it actually worked. Like I felt like I wanted to die, and yeah. The like eucalyptus. I think you sniff like eucalyptus. So empathy is a big one. Non-defensive is also tough because sometimes you want to defend something, but like your group policy should speak for itself. Like you don't have to defend it. You know what I mean? Like it should be fair enough and neutral enough that you're not like out there defending yourself. Like, no, I told you. And that's kind of also the way that we try to train you guys is that you've got all these empathetic, powerful, possess stamina, committed to self-care. That one, I will take a time. Have any of you seen my self-care PowerPoint presentation yet? It's okay if you haven't. I try to show it in every class that I teach. Right. I'll show it again. But it's just so important for us to do self-care as social workers. Otherwise, we burn the F out, like, period. Like, if I didn't do a lot of self-care from Friday till today with, like, this congestion, sometimes it turns into a sinus infection. I get sick and I can't show up to work. And that was more when I was an intern and, like, a student. And luckily, by the time I became a full-time worker, I knew how to nip it in the bud. Like, I feel when it's coming on. I know what crap to avoid, which is dairy or milk or cheese or all the good pizza crap, but then eat all the nasty collard greens and like mustard greens and onions and all that and try to, it cleared me out. So I never got sinus infected. And that's also self-awareness, like knowing when you need to slow down and kind of chill out. Possessing a sense of humor is big too. So like, you know, you can kind of even joke. And then finally being inventive and dedicated. So I know I'm working through these backwards still, but any questions? See if I can get up to the top. Nope. There we go. Now I'm going the other way. So any things you guys want to talk about in terms of leadership anxiety? And which style do you think you'll use? Authoritarian, democratic, or laissez-faire?
Probably authoritarian.
What you say? What's the first?
Authoritarian. It said, like, shut up. Like in a nice way, though. Like you say it with a smile. Like, we're starting now. Which could be helpful. I'm kind of laissez-faire, and that doesn't always go over well. Some
I think
people,
I'm kind of like that.
yeah.
I'm real like laid back,
Yeah.
and it's kind of not good because I think it's not like I'm so much like you're either gonna listen or gonna learn,
Right.
or you take what you take from it or you're not.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
I feel like we're
And
grown, so I can't force you.
Yeah.
luckily in college, it's kind of that way. But if it was like, yeah,
It'll
like
be- I'll be authoritarian.
you almost have to be.
Yeah.
Well, they mentioned too. What's that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it mentions towards the end too, where like there's a point where it could look like you as the leader are weak, like if you don't nip the problem in the bud.
Yeah.
So trying to avoid that. Leaderless, well, okay, and then you pair your leadership style with the group type. So regardless of style, leaders must promote sharing and then core mechanisms of group leadership. And that's whatever you're trying to teach them, whatever point you're trying to get across, or whatever the group is about, you want to get that information out towards them and just learning how to do stuff. Dang, this class is always so freaking fast. That first quote, it's the leader plays a vital role in both the dynamics of the group and the outcome of its members. Because if you're like a total asshole instead of like authoritarian, you're like, there's another word that it's like parenting. 4 styles of parenting. Authoritative. Authoritarian. But if you're just like a total ass, I always say you balance empathy and then you challenge people with something. And you're empathetic, challenge them. And you're empathetic, and you're challenged. But if you always challenge them, you're an asshole. If you're always empathetic, you're a pushover, and they might see it as weak. So you want to come somewhere in the middle. So you do get your points across, and like you set the tone, and people finish your group successfully. Did you guys want to see some of the ways to find a mental health group to observe? Are any of you
Yes,
doing?
please.
Are you doing one that's
I want one.
at your agencies or? Okay. So I always do AA.org, accept the cookies. I don't even know why you have to accept cookies. Are we Santa Claus?
Mhm.
And then, okay, maybe it's under find AA near you.
I thought it was in that search bar.
It could be like that. I want you to do like,
Oh, it's the same.
if it's online though, it might let you go anywhere in like Europe and Canada and I'm starting to remember too. A lot of times it's easier literally just be like online AA meeting near me. And then there's one site that really does it based off the current time you're at right now. So like, there it is, online group. And then it'll know it's Monday at 1:37 p.m. And it'll like, click you a link from there. There it is. So it knows that 1:30, or if you want to like jump in a little bit late, it still lets you. Free conference call. So those are all the different meetings that
So are they already?
those are already going. And you want, so if you don't identify as an alcoholic, you want to go only to open meetings. They're open to anybody.
So
It says here.
open meeting. So,
So-
like when you hit the Zoom, you don't have to like talk with me.
No. There's some that do want you to make sure you're not a Zoom bomber, if you've ever heard of those. There's people that come on and like screw around. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come on and like put up pictures of like pornography and other weird crap or say stupid stuff, and they have nothing better to do. They might be teenagers, maybe they're just adults that are whatever. So they may ask you, some do ask, some don't. So just make sure it's an open meeting, that's all. Closed meetings are limited to alcoholics only, and then they can feel safe to share in a closed meeting. But as long as you do an open meeting, you believe how many there are though? Like that was just 130. All of these are twos, and it's this is an open meeting. So happy Trudgers, that's in Colorado. I don't know what that one is. Hawaii, didn't they just burn down?
Yeah, they did. Bad. It looks awful over there.
I know. So you observe this and then fill out at the end of the syllabus your stuff. If you find a mental health group, that's awesome too, because obviously that's really what you want to do. Oh, another update, of course. I'll probably shut it down for us, huh? So any questions at this point? Mondays are always crazy and stressful. How are your other classes going?
It's smooth. Yeah.
Straightforward. Yeah.
Any you want to drop?
No, I'm not gonna jump into classes. I need all these classes.
You want to finish
Statistics seem like it's about to be
What
a
do
pain.
you have?
Buckmeyer?
It wasn't that. If you
Yeah,
have
like
it,
you like
well, it's not bad with him. It's not bad. Just really
Oh,
pay attention
fat?
and take notes.
I
Like,
can't remember his name right now, but he wears
Buckmeyer?
glasses. He got like a little.
I don't know what care.
No, that's not what my.
Veach.
Yeah.
I
He's
think that's his
really,
name.
it's straightforward. As long as you're taking notes and paying attention, you're gonna be fine. Yeah.
He even said that if you'll go curve the test, it can go like you have to try.
Yeah.
Final, but if you didn't curve in final, I'm gonna fail.
Yeah. Like, if you just try.
Just took literacy or y'all took-
I did not take, I really, okay, so I have to add it back on because I took it this summer and it did not go well.
It's hard.
So, it's interesting. I wouldn't say hard, it's just interesting. Like, it's just a lot.
It's the light you gotta pay attention to.
Yeah, like, it's just
Programming,
computer, like,
yeah.
when you're not just into computer science and stuff like that, it's just like not interesting.
You don't even have to take a computer class.
Yeah, I thought we didn't either, so check with, who's your life? Yeah, well, yeah, we do that. If she's saying,
We're figuring out live time. Well, that is, I know we're already on, that said week 3, but those used to be